Hello plant friends, welcome back to my channel. My name's Victoria and you're watching Plantastics. Today we're going to be looking at some of my Hoyas. So without further ado, roll the intro and let's get started. The first Hoya that I'm going to show you is called Hoya Publicalyx. So I believe that there are multiple varieties of this one. I think there's two, and the only difference you can really tell is when they bloom. So Hoyas are really cool because they have these, they call them porcelain flowers, and they call them that because they just look so ornate and so just unreal and delicate, like they're made of porcelain or glass. So this one was a small, like 1-inch cutting. It was in the miniature, like terrarium section at a nursery. And they sell these little tiny 1-inch pots, and it's really great because it's a really nice size starter plant most of the time. The next Hoya I'm going to show you is Hoya Bella. So the Hoya I just showed you, that one is a vining one, so you can train it on a trellis. This is one that you really, it kind of cascades down, so you wouldn't want to train it on a trellis so much. You want it to just, you know, flow over the side and kind of cascade. I have this here because I think it's pretty. I'm not going to be training it on there. So you can see it's looks really full, and that has taken a lot of deliberate time. So what I like to do is I take an inch or two off of the new growth and I stick it in some moss, and then once there are roots, I put it into the soil. So that's how I was able to achieve this fuller look. This Hoya right here is Hoya Hindu rope variegated, and you can see that it does look like a rope. My first ever Hoya was actually a Hindu rope. It was not variegated, and I had it, it got into this huge size, and it was just trailing down, and I had it for several years, and unfortunately one winter I forgot to bring it inside. So that's what happened to my first ever Hoya. So this one has been a little bit slower to grow than the one that I remember whenever I got my first one. And I think that it's because it's variegated. Now, so far, all of the Hoyas I've shown you, none of them have bloomed for me. And I'm going to get to the two that are blooming or about to bloom. So this one you have to be patient with. Not as slow as Hoya Caria. And then this fun pot that I have in my hands, I actually made myself. That's why it's a little bit asymmetrical. So this is Hoya Hindu rope. So just to contrast with Hoya Bella, see, I didn't do a propagation to make this look more full. So you can see this one's way cooler looking because it's a fuller plant. So this is Hoya linearis, and it's really nice. It's unusual because it's fuzzy. I remember seeing a video of another YouTuber have one of these, and I was obsessed. And this one actually is blooming for me. It has a peduncle. If you can see, it's very small. This is its first year it's ever had a peduncle, so I consider that a win. And I actually have this one in a container that is actually a candle holder. So you can get really creative with your pots. I like to have something that's a little bit elevated, like in height, so that way they can drape down. This Hoya right here is Hoya Matilda, and it's one of my favorites. So I am trying to have as many plants as possible in the space that I have. And I like this one so much because the leaves stay relatively small. So the leaves are really kind of splashy. This one also has peduncles. They're kind of harder to see. I have one somewhere around here. If I can find it, I will show it. Okay, so I'm not really sure if this is a peduncle or not. It doesn't look like it's growing new leaves. I could be wrong. I think that's a peduncle. I also swore I saw another one, but I could just be super optimistic. So this is Hoya Matilda. This Hoya is my oldest Hoya in my collection, or it may be about the same age as this one. So this one's like 3 or 4 years old, and this one blooms for me constantly. It is Hoya Gracilis, and it looks a lot like the Publicalyx. I'm just going to pick up the pot. but they're different because this one kind of has longer leaves and these are kind of smaller. So just something to note, because if I don't have labels, I do confuse the two of these. So there are active peduncles on this one. You can see there's one here. So I'm going to try to make a wreath with this one, kind of like I've done with this Matilda. So this is Hoya Gracilis. This is Hoya Wayetii. And this is a mixture of variegated and non-variegated. So I purchased, I think it was from Bloomables on Amazon, and I got 5 different cuttings of different Hoyas. They were like starter. So this one has gotten very large because similar to the Publicalyx I showed you, it was in a tiny like 1-inch pot. So it's taken it a year or two to get to the size. And I have it in a seashell because I think it looks like some kind of a sea creature. And I just thought that that was really cool. So most of my Hoyas are in flower pots, but this one is not. This one is in like a to-go container that I got at a restaurant, and I just poked a ton of holes in it. It's really happy, so I don't know how big it's gonna get just with that tiny container, but we're gonna see. And you can see that it's just like got all this new growth now that it's spring and winter is finally over. So this is Hoya Wayetii. So I'm not really sure what this Hoya is called. So if you know, please comment. It's a little bit dainty. It hasn't really had a chance to grow. Now, when you look at the roots, it's been really kind of going crazy for it to be in here for just 2 weeks. So imagine what it's doing is it's growing a lot of roots, and soon I'll be seeing growth in terms of foliage. So this is Hoya unknown. This Hoya is Hoya krohniana super silver, and it has been in my collection for a really long time. I just finished treating it and several others for flat mites because I did have several different Hoyas in my propagation room in the back, and they were just not growing. So I took pictures and posted them, and someone was like, wow, that is a case of flat mites if I've ever seen it. So I sprayed everybody down. Now this one didn't look like it had flat mites. That's why it's on this table. But since everything that was like either had been in that room or was in that room, I treated it. So this does have new growth. It's also been just drowned in insecticidal soap. But yeah, so this one's making a comeback, and this is Hoya krohniana super silver with its super silver leaves. This is Hoya Obovata. Now, when you look at the leaves, they are normally perfectly round. Now, since I did cut it and put it in moss, and now the leaves are just kind of wonky looking, if you can see. But you can see there's this huge new growth here. There's actually 2 large cuttings in here, and I got both of those cuttings from the larger plant that I have in my vivarium. So this one's really nice. It does get really large in terms of leaf size. It is my largest one. I purchased it my first year of law school, which was 4 years ago now, and it is an amazing grower for me. It has not bloomed. This is Hoya Crimson Queen, and I have decorated and made some of the other trellises I've showed you, but this one I did not make or decorate. It's just boring and bland because my goal is to just get this Hoya to completely cover it and it just be a ball of Crimson Queen Hoya. So this one's really neat for several reasons. Number one, it grows so quickly. And I'm hoping that this is the year that it actually blooms for me. That would be so nice. Something else is that I have an entirely variegated like section right here. So these are solid white, and it's kind of hard to see because I have everybody kind of like tucked in. This is where it kind of started. It was just a couple of leaves, and as it's grown, like the stem is pink and all the leaves are white. And what I do is I just make sure that it gets the water that it needs. And so far, I haven't lost any of the white leaves. Okay, so I've showed you all the Hoyas on this table. Now, you're probably wondering, how do you care for these? Aren't Hoyas fussy? And I'll be honest, there is a bit of a learning curve. Sometimes people can get so impatient with Hoyas. They are kind of slow. They need to establish their roots or adjust to their environment before they start growing. Hoyas sometimes, after a repot, will seem like they're frozen in time, but in reality, their roots are doing a ton of work. You're just not able to see it. That's one of the reasons why I really like to use clear nursery pots or netted pots. So you can use whatever pot that works best in your environment. My plants here dry out very quickly in terms of their soil because I run an air conditioner pretty much 24/7 in the spring, summer, and fall. All the humidity and water droplets in the air are stripped out by the air conditioner. So that's why I use cash pots. If you live in a place where you kind of have stagnant air, you might want to look into terracotta. It really just depends on your environment. So everything that I say after this is going to really help people who live in a place that's dry. Even though I live in the South and I can step outside and it's 80 to 90% humidity some days, inside my house is not the same. Sometimes it's between 40 and 50 or even lower. So that's just something to keep in mind. Because the soil in my plants dry out so quickly, I like to utilize cash pots, netted pots, and wicking. I also have some that are in cash pots that are directly on the bottom. So here's an example of a cash pot that has the nursery pot directly on the bottom. So a cash pot is a pot without a hole. So there's no hole. So what you do is you pour your water in. You're going to water more lightly because there's no place for the water to drain, or you can wait a couple hours, and then what you can do is you can pour the extra water into a bucket or into the sink. I just like to lightly water so that way I don't have to do that step, but that's just an option. Something else is you can also use cash pots with netted pots. If you have a plant that really likes to have air within its roots, this is what's best. I'll also talk about what substrate that I use for my Hoyas. So for this one, it's a great example of just something that I honestly made up. I have a really chunky mix. I have a wick, a netted pot, and a cash pot. This is really great because I can water this, and as it evaporates, it basically waters it a second time without really soaking or getting the roots overly soggy. Here's another one of my Hoyas. So this one's in a clear pot, and you can see the roots are going pretty crazy. I'm going to give you kind of a close-up. It's kind of hard because of how top-heavy this trellis makes the plant. I like to water this one, let the water be wicked up through the wick, and I let this one dry out to where the bottom reservoir is completely dry. So now I'm going to talk about soil. For Hoyas, you want to aim for something that's just got a little bit of air in between the pieces of whatever you're using. For me, my soil mixes vary drastically. I don't always have what I need on hand because I'm able to just use whatever, and my plants don't seem to really mind. I like to keep orchid bark at least around, and then chunky perlite. So what I'll do is I'll take regular soil, 1 part regular soil, 1 part bark or something chunky, and then 1 part perlite, and I'll mix it up together, throw in my beneficial fungi, and that's what I use for all my different Hoyas. That really works well for me. Hoyas can have the same pests as any other type of houseplant. The pest that seems to affect Hoyas the most are flat mites. Flat mites seem to kind of just stop all growth. The plant's constantly trying to shoot out new growth, but it's unsuccessful in completing that growth because the flat mites eat it up. So you can see a growth point and then 10 more growth points at the end of that branch. That's flat mites. There's also other pests, but I can make another video specifically on how to treat for those, because flat mites are the one that is so pervasive in Hoyas. And it's normally because cyclamen mites and violets, they're really hard to see. And the only way you can really notice them is with a microscope or once they've been there for a really long time. Hoyas like light, but with all the grow lights on the market, it can be really difficult to know what grow lights are giving you sufficient light or not. I encourage you to get a light meter. Light meters are great because you're able to see exactly how many foot candles or lumens your plants are getting. So yeah, Hoyas, they're beautiful, they're amazing, they have the most amazing flowers. They can grow and be kind of small or get really big. You can pick basically whatever outcome you want based off of what variety you pick. If you're interested in how I make these trellises, please comment, show me how to make a trellis or something along those lines. And if I get 10 comments requesting it, then I'll make a video dedicated just to how I make trellises. So just to recap, if you're interested in Hoyas, I would totally look into getting one. Thank you so much for watching my video. If you like this video, be sure to like it and share it with other people that are interested in maybe getting into Hoyas. Be sure to comment your very favorite Hoya or one that I should maybe get and add to my collection. I'm looking to add Hoyas specifically that have tiny leaves, kind of like Bella or the Matilda here. I'll be seeing you next time. Goodbye.